Saturday night, and you know what time it is. It's time for race talk. I know it makes some people very happy, it makes some people very angry. So, for the angry people, I'm very sorry. For the happy people, get yourself your nice little cocktail, and we're going to talk for an hour, maybe a little bit more about racism in Connecticut and around the country. So, stand by. We'll be back in a few. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Yale Police has got to go. You know what? I'm just here to be with you all tonight in this wonderful, cold, frigid January, end of January evening. And we have CJ from Black and Brown United, New Hallville, New Haven. We have Dwan Eastman from COPS, Citizens Opposed to Police States. And we have myself. And we know we always have a good time on Saturday nights chatting. So how was everybody's week this week? Everybody was doing good? Everybody's feeling good? You're enjoying all the news coverage? Because I know I was. Okay, all right. I know I'm going to have to say it. Let's talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Lord have mercy on Georgia. She, you know what the thing, I wasn't paying attention to her up until she said that Newtown Sandy Hook's incident was staged or whatever she was saying on. I was like, oh, okay, now Marjorie, you don't cross the line on crazy, and I can understand that she's interested in, her gun rights and her Second Amendment rights and whatnot, but I don't know where all of this other stuff is coming from.
It's that weird, really, I guess, racist right-wing media sphere that they have. And she's a bubbled up creation of it. And that's stuff that they say about Sandy Hook and parents, that they could actually go for us down the street and visit these places and see if their theories about this being a false flag or gun violence not being real are real. They can go take this up with the parents that are there, or for all of us who are, normal and actually don't, when we understand that, a bunch of armed racists with guns are dangerous, we just held our kids closely once we realized how close that was, instead of coming up with some conspiracy to justify a antiquated view of the world.
Exactly. I mean, she said the Sandy Hook was a false flag. I don't even know what that means, but Sandy Hook was a false flag, and Parkland. And then did you see what she was doing to the poor kid that was the survivor of Parkland? She's walking behind him, trash talking him the whole time about, you're just, submitting to corporations or whatever. Oh, wait, here's the best part. I forgot to tell you. She was trash talking Congressman Cori Bush and her staff to the point where Cori Bush and her staff said, we need to move our offices away from her office because they keep getting verbally assaulted by her people and her when they leave their office. Now let's talk about Cori Bush. Now, she's a sister. She's doing the politically correct thing by moving her office. Right?
Well,
because
it's survival too, because they'll take those panic buttons out, and when the whites go chimp and decide they're going to tear something up, you're a target. We've seen them do it now, and apparently the police, they can't use the same stuff they use for us peaceful protesters, because we don't have enough guns. They have a different protocol for white protesters who apparently can protest with more weaponry than the police, as the police did report they were afraid that they would be outgunned by those protesters. So it's really a matter of survival for Cori Bush.
It really is. I mean, and she wants to live to see the end of her term and maybe have another one. You know, she didn't get into Congress and battle in Missouri all those years, you know, to now end up dead on in congressional offices because of this woman and her whatever. You know, I mean, it's just hard to believe, honestly. You know, I mean, and then they seem to be clinging to Donald Trump. You know, everybody still, now they're all going down to Florida to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. Oh, Donald's like, you need to still continue to deal with me because I still control the people. Well, what people you control, Donald? Who you control, bro? You control it every. I mean, okay, I know. I mean, like, that was my Godfather voice. I know it's terrible, but I just want to say I still run the Republican Party. I know they cut me off of Twitter, but I'm still here. Come on, y'all. Really? You know, you clinging to your base of anti-Semitic, racist, xenophobic, homophobic followers. I mean, congratulations, Donald. If you know what, Donald knew he could be a cult leader 30 years ago. He would have did that a long time ago. He was like, dang, that was easier than The Apprentice. That was easier than all the other things that he claimed he was doing to be successful. He could have just been a cult leader. Bro, you missed your calling. Oh, no, you didn't. I'm sorry. I'm going to be serious tonight. Let's talk about racism in Connecticut. What do you think, CJ?
I mean, this country is just built on white supremacy. This is white supremacy at its finest. I mean, for what she said about Newtown, go tell that to the families who lost children. You know, that was not an act. That, yeah, you know what? No, I take that back. That was an act of terror. But you see, when they do it, it becomes something else. Because had it been one of us, it would be a different conversation. And, you know, as I've said previously, you know, we are conditioned to feel inferior from childhood, on the job, and culturally. And this is another example of that. And I admire Miss Cori Bush for staying strong because that's a spit. You know, Karen got spit on, and this is another way that we get spit on when we are bullied and have to retreat and secure ourselves. And these are the things that happen and are happening. I mean, right here in Connecticut, my understanding is there's a lot of hate rhetoric happening, and you know, lives are being threatened. You know, Johanna Haynes, she received some threats. You know, we need to think and talk about those things. Because,
well, yeah, you know, there was yeah, I'm glad you said that because there was that Board of Ed member in the New Britain school system, Board of Ed. She got like a threatening note, and it was terrible.
It's terrible. I mean, it's almost like, you know, we're watching things that we thought would not happen anymore that are happening right now. And I think that most of us are so intent on normalcy or perceived normalcy, for that matter, that, you know, any which way that we could ignore these things that are happening, all these isms. I mean, take for example, right here in Connecticut, to talk about making racism a public health pandemic. I mean, declaring it. The thing about it is, it always was one. And it's such a hard pill for white people to swallow because it means that we would now have rights and acknowledgments of things done to us that are wrong, that they have excused for so long. I mean, I think a part of the reason why it's such a struggle here in Connecticut is because making that declaration will definitely affect employment law. You know, there's a lot of hateful things that happen on the job. You know, you have supervisors who abuse their positions. We get written up proportionately more than our white peers. We're also paid less, and our standard of work is expected to be stellar. If we sneeze too hard, we get written up for that. I think about all the people who, their job security was threatened in different ways. Either their hours were cut or they were told, well, if you don't show up on time or you don't show up to work, you may not have a job. And it's not so directly, you see. That's the thing. It's a subliminal. And for her to say something like that, that's a subliminal jab to say, listen, somebody just did that for no particular reason. No, he knew what he was doing. As Dewan pointed out, the Black Lives Movement is peaceful. The violence comes when the police show up and approach us while we're exercising our right to protest. And that's the lesser talked about situation. And right here in Connecticut, I can tell you both, we had an incident last week. A Latino man went down to Maryland court to contest a DUI charge, and then he was held in an ICE detainer. Long story short, it was a direct violation of the Trust Act. When we went to bail him, the Department of Corrections refused to do it. The manner in which that they conducted themselves was just appalling. And they literally said, you're not going to be able to bond him on our time. You got to wait till court. This is after we spoke to the state's attorney. This is after we were told, yes, go down there, go down to the correctional facility, pay the monies, and he'll be released. And here they are holding on to this man. These are all ways that we get spit on. Every time our rights are violated, every time our existence is insulted. I mean, we still have Black and brown people referring to themselves as people of color, minorities. There's a lot of work to do in Connecticut. That's all I can say, a ton. And we could talk about what's happening in other states, but in Trinidad, we say you wet your own yard before you wet your neighbor's own. So we need to wet our yard and pay attention to what's happening right here, because a lot of our Black and brown people, especially our domestic workers, they are essential workers. They have been working throughout this pandemic, and I could just imagine the way they're being treated and spoken to. So this is why declaring racism a public health crisis is like a sting, because it's all about the balance of power and it's all about shifting that. And that's also the reason why we haven't seen much, if any, COVID relief for our communities. It's sad.
No, I mean, we haven't seen anything directly. And the problem is, I think, is that these big time monies come from the federal government, and it goes to like these big nonprofits like the United Way. And no shade to them. I mean, I don't know anybody over there, but I'm just saying that those are the places that it goes. And then you ask people in New Hallville or Bridgeport or Fairhaven, and they're saying they don't know anything. They don't know where there's any support. I mean, if you are, pending being evicted, then you haven't even paid your utility bills because you don't have the money. If you've been laid off or you down to like a bare minimum of working hours. So, where's all these millions of dollars that came to Connecticut? I'm not talking about the one that just happened in December. I'm talking about the one that happened in like May. Like, where's that money? Where is that money?
Who knows?
Like, where did it go? And whose pocket did it go into? Because I know part of it was to go to unemployment to extend it. But I don't know, like, as far as food assistance and whatnot. I mean, people, it wasn't their fault that, their offices and their businesses and their jobs and restaurants closed down. So why are we going to allow them to be hungry and living in a tent with kids?
Or in the cold, Connecticut Gas and United Illuminating, they're the two biggest utility companies. They have all this monies. They got relief. They got COVID relief. Why didn't they put it in the crediting? Yeah, they got it. So you see, again, that's another spit on us. And we need to recognize these spits because, enough is enough now. What is being failed to realize, like, let's talk about education, for example. Pre-COVID, Black and brown families were struggling to pay for daycare costs. It was a constant struggle. And the reason being is because daycare is not cheap. Now, here comes COVID. You have families who need to work. We have a lot of working families here in New Haven. There was no type of childcare subsidy or stipend or anything. So the little piece of money you had from your paycheck, you're not getting paid or reimbursed for buying your PPE. So now you have this unforeseen expense, and PPE is not cheap. And then it doesn't stop with a mask. You got to get sanitizer, all kinds of different things, right? For example, in the case of her student, a bus driver explained to me that she bought her own this and her own that. This was her way of saying to me that she does not feel that it is necessary for the schools to close. But here's the thing, you paid for that. You have to pay for that every time. And you don't see a problem there. The company is not reimbursing you. So there's money being stolen from us again. And this is why when we talk about defunding the police, this is where that conversation comes from. We are not at a point where we could talk about abolishing the police. I don't know about everybody else, but I don't really care to have, shooters like the person who executed that situation there at Newtown, for lack of a better term. I don't feel comfortable having those individuals in society. I don't feel comfortable having rapists and child molesters in the society. So I do not think we're at a time where we could actively, and those who embezzle, except if you're the mayor of Bridgeport, then I guess you get to come out. But aside from that, I don't think it's a good thing to have, the police abolished. But we have an inherent problem here, and we need to address that because our communities are continuously being defunded. And I don't understand why this is such a, why are we having such a hard time? The only thing I could think of is that this state runs on so much privilege. The privilege can't handle giving it back to the poor and working people, because it would mean that their rights, imagine that, their rights will be taken from them if we could afford to live.
Well, I mean, let's just say this. I mean, everybody can argue with me all they want, all day long. I don't really care about the arguing. But really, if you want to talk about, racism as a public health crisis, and isn't that just another soundbite? Like, isn't that just another soundbite?
I don't think it's a soundbite. I think it's a hard pill to swallow, because it has been. It's not is. It has been. It's been going on for a very long time.
What I mean by soundbite is like, I'm like, isn't it like we already know this? And like, what are you gonna do about it?
No, we know it.
Yeah.
We know it. But this is why you cannot have white people teaching diversity and equity. Because if we had been teaching it, they would know it too. How you going to tell me about it?
That's another whole discussion.
I mean,
that's another whole discussion when you got white folks
teaching. Know how racist they are, and they just don't care, and we
exactly
pretend that they don't.
They're right.
But when you listen to the logic of some of their arguments, I mean, the essential white guy response is always, "Have you considered just dying more quietly?" I mean, you can't help but catch the logic there when that's the logic of the responses you're getting. They understand to some extent that they're evil as fuck.
But this is what I'm saying. My point is like, okay, so now we are talking about racism being a public health crisis. So is it still going to give me any level of power or money? No. I mean,
yes. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because once you declare it a public health crisis, what will happen is employment law will have to be revised, because now you're going to have to look at discrimination from a different lens. Right now, discrimination is viewed the white way. Once again, we have white people tell us how to diversify and how to be equal. And then they decide what is discriminatory and what is not. It's very laughable. The whole thing is just a comedy, and we sit here and this happens.
The damn power that you choose to not give to us. Oh, look at that face. There was a cute face there for a second.
So
okay, yeah, I'm just saying. Okay, so let me ask y'all another question. Here's the $100,000 question for tonight's race talk. Are we living currently in the modern day digital version of the civil rights movement?
Well, I'll tell you something. I don't have $100,000, so I'll send this question over to Edgar because he's in the fancy office over there. You know, looking rather swanky. You're looking real official over there. My boy rolled up on the conversation.
Well, if I may interject at this moment, listen, this is,
Allow
you
him
know,
to reintroduce himself. Go ahead,
based
Edgar.
on based on everything, and I say this because Rhonda and I, you know, we've been able to see some things in our years in working with
Are you serious? You're
corporate
old?
America, with corporate America.
Lord have
All right.
mercy.
So the thing is that although things change, things still remain the same.
That's right.
So a lot of the things that we are asking for now, we were asking for 20 years ago.
The whole
And
time.
the civil rights movement was asking for it 50 years ago, and individuals asking for it 70 years ago, 100 years ago. We're still asking for the same things 150 plus years
That's right.
after the emancipation, quote unquote, Emancipation Proclamation. The same thing. During now that Rhonda has this studio going, we're gonna start loading some videos up. And I saw a documentary with Tony Brown Journal, that he did in 1971, and he had leaders. It is so way back. They're trying to call people on the phone to link into the conversation. This is how far we've got. But you had Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, you had Ralph Bunche, you had all of the movers and shakers back in 1971. And if you blocked out the picture and you just listen to the conversation, it sounds like every soundbite you're hearing in 2021. So basically, nothing has changed. We're asking for the same things, and we have the red, we have the conservative, we have the liberal, we have everyone that's keep feeding us this lip service that keeps spinning the wheels, that we're getting absolutely nowhere. Dr. Claude Anderson said,
Edgar?
yes, ma'am.
Can I put some seasoning on that? So it was
Please.
Steve Biko who spoke about, you know, owning our melanin, right? So he actually stood off and faced off with a judge, a white judge, who asked him, how can you call yourself black? And he asked the judge, well, how can you call yourself white? Who gave you that right? You know,
Right.
and this is the thing, you know, we got a lot of rhetoric. So I'm big on narrative, as you all know, and the reason being is because the poor and the working people, I don't know about you all, but the ones I know, they do not walk around the Encyclopedia Britannica. So for
I'm
that
one of them
reason,
poor working people.
exactly. So what I've noticed is that a lot of big words and a lot of terminologies mask the liberation that does not exist, you know, and we need to really understand what that means. The sense of inclusiveness that we request and we demand is not found. It has not been reached yet. What has happened is we have white people who went to whatever class and whatever school and decided because they studied this and they studied that, they became experts in our skin. So now they have taken it upon themselves to show up on our jobs and do these equity trainings, which I find is so laughable because, you know, I think it's such a joke. How you
I
gonna
gotta
tell
mute
me
for that
I'm
one.
black? How you
But
gonna,
listen,
you know what I
listen.
mean?
This is
How you
the
gonna do
thing.
that?
You have the Rockefeller Foundation, you have the Ford Foundation, you have Carnegie Mellon, you have all of these foundations, okay, who donate so much money to education. But what they have done is they have limited the information being printed in our books. So by donating and building wings on colleges and doing all that, they have boxed in the education process, because you ask yourself now with the internet and Google and everything, you can find information. Who knew that Dumas, well, you guys are younger than I am, but who knew that Dumas, who wrote The Three Musketeers, who knew while they were in school that he was black? I didn't know. He wrote The Three Musketeers. He wrote a whole, no one knew. Who knew that Hannibal, the greatest general in history next to Sun Tzu, who knew that he was black? So if all of these,
know that courtesy of my English teacher in high school, but I didn't go to school here.
I read Othello, but they masked it, and they didn't use black. They called him a Moor. So I didn't know what a Moor was.
But Edgar, you're touching on something that I like what you're touching on, but let's look at that again. At the same time that the education was defunded in Black and brown communities, we also saw rampant incarceration. So these things were all done by design. Exactly.
Indeed.
We also saw housing segregation. These things were all done by design. So it wasn't just, okay, so let's go into Day One's favorite topic here. Let's talk about intersectionality for a minute. All right. I'm going to jump in there real quick. You have to look at all the moving parts. You can't just say, okay, housing is it. You can't just say, it's just one thing. The fact remains they've been climbing our walls via defunding core programs, and they have been spitting on us on the job and everywhere else. As I said before, we have learned how to devalue ourselves from childhood. For instance, young Black and brown children growing up, if they don't do well in a class, the parents automatically say, what happened to you? You didn't pay attention? It's always our fault. On the job, we get written up. Oh, well, you probably just wasn't following the rules. We know how to accept blame, and we know how to accept guilt, because this is what has been put on us. In exchange for our respect and dignity, we have been defunded our own being, and this is how they did it. So while we talk and we cross compare, we're at a time right now, forget the reference book. This is about how do we fix these things? Where do we go from here? Which has been what we've been talking about these last few sessions, because it's the intersectionality, it's all the moving pieces, it's the housing, it's the fact that right now food prices are going up, it's the fact that my paycheck didn't get bigger, but my utility bill did. It's the fact that people have to pay rents and mortgages on a livable income that cannot, when they did the research and field work on COVID-19, they seriously underscored the impact on the cost of living, especially in the Black and brown communities. It's as old as time. The outcome of poverty is crime. So you know what they're doing right now? They're showing us all the crime that's happening. So guess what we're doing? This is the cultural part. We're saying, oh my God, our people are terrible. But on January 6th, look at what happened. An attempted coup by white people. All right. And I just need somebody to let me know who from Connecticut was there, because there was a caravan that left Connecticut. I need to know who is flying that state flag. And it needs to be exposed, because you know why? Connecticut prides itself on being blue, but it's blue on the outside and very gray and tarnished on the inside. I guarantee you, if the Department of Labor was to do research, they would find out something that's not surprising. Since the beginning of the pandemic, it's our communities that are losing jobs. It's our people who are getting written up on the job and threatened with their jobs. That's what's happening. What do you expect people to do? For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. What do you think, Rhonda?
I asked y'all a question. Y'all didn't answer me. Is this the digital version of the modern day civil rights movement?
Why digital?
Yes or no? It's a yes or no question.
Yes, it is.
You are a hostile witness.
Nobody told me how to be black yet. I'm sorry. Did it show up yet and give me my diversity training? I'm not diverse enough. I need some white person to show up and tell me how.
Because everybody wants to say that, we need diversity inclusion training. We need tolerance training. We need this. We need to call it that. We need to call it now. We need your power. That's it.
That's
And
it.
if you won't give it to
Balance
us,
of power.
then we will have to
Mhm.
take it from you, and we'll take it by the ballot. I'm not talking anymore. I'm not talking anymore. I told y'all right now, I'll tell you, I'll continue to tell everybody I know, I am not asking for anything anymore on any more. I'm done asking and being polite. I have told people you will follow, this is the agenda. We got people over here that don't have power. They're getting ready to be evicted, and they are tax-paying working citizens. They paid you. No matter of fact, they didn't pay you.
Mhm.
You took their money out of their paycheck faithfully every 2 weeks or every week, however you got paid. You didn't even ask. You just went in and took your piece.
No.
We want our piece back. All right.
Mhm.
You're not doing anybody any favors. Stop calling, oh, we need to give money to the needy communities. The needy communities weren't needy until you made them needy. All right.
That's right.
And let's talk about
That's right.
the article I put on my page about the exclusionary zoning that's still going on despite the Connecticut Supreme Court ruling against it. That's called defiant segregation. Okay, that's called, I make sure you don't come and live in Greenwich, Rhonda Caldwell, because you ain't got $1 million to buy a house down here. All right, I'll make sure, Rhonda Caldwell, you don't come and live in Westport or Fairfield or Southport or Westwoods or Spring Glen, because you ain't got $300,000 laying around. Why? Because the people that came before you, they didn't own any land. They didn't have any assets. They didn't have the jobs. They didn't get, and the ones that did have the jobs, they didn't get the raises. They didn't get the promotions. They didn't get the benefits that their white counterpart got. I showed Edgar a Census Bureau.
Sell out, you do if you sell out.
Edgar a Census Bureau report that said that if you compare the average Black and brown person's salary growth to their white counterpart with the same education, the same everything. All right. We are, if you actually do the calculations, we are, our community at large is making like $35,000 a year to their $150,000 a year. That is not a damn accident. Okay.
No.
Either you're going to give us what you've taken, or we will see you in the voting booth.
Right. See, that goes back to what I said, is that we're singing the same song, and it's time to stop singing and to start swinging, because that's the only way that people are going to see. We saw what happened in January 6th. Okay. The people, those insurrectionists, they stopped talking and they start swinging.
The terrorists. Call them what they are.
Terrorists. But they're terrorists, but they stopped talking and they started swinging. And they said, I'm jumping, but they said, by any means necessary, we're going to let you know just how pissed off we are. We know that we can't go to that extreme, because there would have been body bags. There would have been body bags, but we have to come up with more strategic ways of getting our point across, because if it doesn't happen now, in 2030, people are going to be asking for the same thing again. We want better jobs. We want higher paying jobs. We want better housing. We want safer communities. This is what's been echoing for 150 years. The same thing. Go back and Google the Martin Luther King. Go back and Google Malcolm X. Go back and Google Stokely Carmichael. Go back and Google Medgar Evers. We are asking for the same thing. So somebody has to tell me, when are people going to actually listen to say that, look, yeah, let's give them something. Nothing's going to happen.
They're never going to give you.
They're not going to listen if we keep falling for it. We can't keep falling.
They don't even like that word, give.
Exactly.
Like,
And you
what?
got to go back to
Where'd you
when
get that
Barack
word from?
won. We got to go back, us who were there, and remember, let's go back to what happened when Barack won the first time. We kind of just say high five, they change administration and leave it there. We gotta take it to the streets. We can't ask, we have to demand. We have to demand. Yes, the voting is part of it. But we have to demand, right?
Yes.
Now, you look at Shirley Chisholm, you look at Fannie Mae, you look at Angela Davis. You're absolutely right, Edgar. We have been asking for these things for too long. And now is the time to demand. And how we demand that is by not buying the big white lie. And it starts up by us recognizing what the narrative really means. When they say they want to add more police, that's not for public safety, bro. That's to intimidate you and to make you think that you're inferior. That's the cultural aspect of oppression. All right. On the job, when they start writing you up and critiquing you for every last thing, that's oppression. You know, when they limit your voting capacity, when you have nonsense like, voting not being electronic, all these different nuances that are invented to oppress us. When we have a DTC that looks whiter than Clorox, that is, oppression. We have to see these things and we have to speak to these things. When we have people serving time on the basis of moral turpitude, on the basis of petty charges. Again, when Reagan was there, all right, he made sure to defund education. He made sure to incarcerate us. And you know what we did? We accepted the blame because culturally, on the job, through our childhood, we are taught to hate ourselves. You spoke on Malcolm X. I'll tell you what he said. Who taught you to hate yourself? That's a big, big, big message. And we have to understand what that means. And now is the time not to ask, but to demand. We shouldn't even be having conversations about solitary confinement anymore in Connecticut if it's as blue as it claims to be. Okay? This is why that woman thought it was fit in the presence of a police officer to spit on Corinne. And that is why I said racism is not a public health crisis. It always has been. It's existing.
It
It's
didn't
as
start
old
now.
as
And
it didn't start
it
now.
didn't start
We
with
need to
George
say it like
Floyd.
that. That's right.
No, it didn't start with George Floyd. Just newsflash: George Floyd was not the beginning of
No.
racism being a public health crisis in America.
We had to watch
It,
Breonna Taylor
it,
get killed, man. Every
listen,
black and brown woman felt that.
you know,
You know what that means? Come
the point
on.
I'm making about the civil rights movement and the oppressors is like, how long do we continue to ask them for justice and to end the oppression? Like, how long? How much longer, Dewan? How much longer are we supposed to stand around and ask them? And then you can get 20,000 heads to show up to the Capitol and then let them all go home. They all got on their little plane. They got in their little pickups and they wrapped up their flags and all their pipe bonds and their guns and they went home.
That's the cruel joke that we keep running into too. It's the 13th Amendment, the first solution that they came up with, equal protection under the law, is so farcical. I mean, to act as if our police treat us the same at this point when Black Lives Matter protesters, I mean, we personally have to keep going over to West Haven PD because they keep arresting us after the fact for a protest that was incredibly peaceful, except for the fact that some white supremacist ran her car through it. This is not the same justice system. We've shown that we are still the same segregated Jim Crow state, oppressive totalitarian state to people of color that we've been from the beginning, and the fissures have just pulled away the illusion, and it's made the civil rights movement, as you were saying, did it go digital? We were meeting each other digitally, I guess, after getting on the streets, because Trump would say the quiet part out loud, and the whites turned around and said, we want more violence. And they did what they always did. They target our children with an increase in hate crime that's like 239% every time Trump would go and give one of his rallies, and nobody would do anything.
Right.
The civil
But
rights
wait a
movement
minute.
is organizing our voice here.
But
You're
it went
saying,
further
CJ?
than George Floyd. Rodney King.
Of course.
Do we remember Rodney King? I mean, here's the thing. The reason why George Floyd stands out is because it happened at a time where we had to watch it. We couldn't ignore it. We couldn't go to work and hear it being judged. We had to face it, and we had to sit down and stare at our own skin. All right. Now, the 13th Amendment, is just a way to continue plantation justice. Nothing changed. We get these little laws that are supposed to make us feel better. They're watered down. If we really had it our way, we would have some level of equity, but they refuse to give us that. Right here in Connecticut, you have the city of New Haven, the mayor, Justin Ehrlicher, will sit there and excuse the director of public health, Maritza Bond. After she went to a super spreader party, she had to go. Apparently, homegirl doesn't have Amazon or mail or text message or nothing else. She had to drive all the way to Trumbull to acknowledge her boy's birthday. She claims that she was only there for 15 to 20 minutes. However, Maritza, that directly violates the CDC guidelines. In the meantime, Justin Ehrlicher also sits on the New Haven Board of Education, where he is co-signing the censoring of Darnell Golson, who is elected to advocate for his community. What is wrong with that picture? Sellouts are the worst, and we need to talk about them too, because they're part of the reason. They sprinkle that sauce and season on the white supremacy. Trust and know that.
Well, the
Is this
sellouts.
the health commissioner that's going around shutting down? Is this the health commissioner that was shutting down the bars and everything in New Haven because of well, there you go.
There you have it.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
like,
and just so you know, she was also quarantined. Sorry, Rhonda. Just so you know, Edgar, she was also in quarantine 2 weeks before that. All right, because a family member of hers was infected with COVID. So this is how this reads. This reads as, I'm going to make this really stupid excuse for why I went all the way to Trumbull. First of all, I don't know about y'all, but I don't have the gas or the time to drive all the way to Trumbull to walk into a party. She keeps saying it's a dinner. The video I saw, them people was gyrating. Like, that was neck to neck gyration happening in that party, okay? There was barely room to sneeze. No, she claims she went in for 15 to 20 minutes because she doesn't want to be seen, as you said, do as I say, not as I do. And then on the flip side, you have Justin Ehrlicher critiquing and adding to the critique of Darnell Golson, who is only trying to secure, the well-being of the Black and brown communities. And right now, 8 New Haven schools have reported infections. How do you account for this? Like, what do you expect from the children? They're children. They've been used to being home with their parents. I'm going to say it again, and some people feel hurt. Schools are not daycares. So I think we need to start addressing the real issue here. There are people, the rent in New Haven is very high, housing segregation again, but that's okay because Yale doesn't have to pay a cent, right? That's fine, And they're using these schools because they have to go to work. The food at the schools, would you eat that? I want to know if people would eat that because I know I wouldn't. Somebody told me they received chicken the other day that was hard enough that if they threw it at me, they'll knock me out. I don't think that's very palatable to myself, I don't think that's a good thing. But you see how they mask it? They told us, oh, your child will come to school and receive a meal. Are you serious? Come on. We got to start.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. So in naming it now something else, we're going to call it a public health crisis. That's going to suddenly resolve stuff?
Nope.
No.
All they're doing is finding new ways to hire some more of their folks to come and teach us how to take it.
Hey, Rhonda, do you remember the school board meeting that we went to? in Hampton.
Yep.
Remember, you guys had that, and you had all the board members up there, and they had, if you look this lady up under White, remember they had a consultant that was there that was talking about all the things that they're gonna have to do, and I'm like, where did they find this person from to
She's
come
from the
to
Bronx.
now say that we are going to? I know what is needed to help quell this issue that's going on at the school, this slavery issue, because it was about that play. It was about the slave play. So who was this person?
Edgar, you know what? You know that's what your problem is. You know what your problem is? You don't understand Spanish people. They are fair skinned. And this lady, she was part Puerto Rican. I know you. Now hold up. And you trying to say something bad about the Hampton Board of Ed that they went out and found this lady because she looked white. I know where you're going with this discussion, and I don't appreciate it. All right.
I'm just saying.
I mean, they are color. This is the colorist nation that we live in. You had to go out and find the lightest, almost just barely white woman you could find to teach our Board of Ed how to be more diverse and understand better curriculum. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, people.
Yeah. I see that, and I want to raise you. I want to raise you, because here's what's going to happen, right? For all y'all, just write it down if you need to. For all y'all who work for state agencies, anything that's state funded, here's what's going to happen to y'all. They're going to have a white person who's going to come in and say, hey, I'm here to teach about diversity and equity. And I know about it because I identify as LGBTQ, whichever one they pick, whichever one it is. I shouldn't say pick, whichever one it is. I am a lesbian, and I understand what it's like to be discriminated against. No, you don't. When the police pull you over, they see your skin, and they ask you license and registration, please. Cognitive bias goes into play. Okay? This thing has been happening for a long time. Eric Garner, Ayanna Stanley, Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, Trayvon Martin. It's been happening for a long time. That's right, Jacob Blake. The list is so long, it's disgusting. And so this is why calling it a public health crisis is cute. But to have white people leading the charge on that, what was the point?
Listen, everyone is using names from that just happened. Okay, let's deal with Yusuf Hawkins. Let's deal with Amadou Diallo. This is nothing. This is why I keep saying we're talking about we're asking for the same things every decade, every half a century, every century. The way I see it is that the only way things are going to change, and then I listened to the mayor, the New Haven mayor, when he was running, and oh my God, you thought that the angels was coming out of the sky and that everything was going to change, but as soon as they get into office, just like Lamont, as soon as they get into office, all of a sudden it switches from being liberal to being to where it's the supremacy comes into play. And we're here to keep this thing perpetuated. We have to continue this thing. So it doesn't matter what we do to get here. Once we're in, it's really business as usual.
But I want to correct you on the liberal piece, because liberal to me is a stain on the air. They're just as bad as white supremacists. I mean, that is as old as time. We were warned about the white liberals. They play the part, they sing the song, they talk about, they want to liberate us. Let me tell you something about Justin Ehrlicher. When Justin Ehrlicher was running, and he had all those folks running against him, all but Seth Poole made an agreement. Seth Poole and Wendy Hamilton, I believe, were the two who did not want to participate in his governance. They did not want to take his offer of working for him. Okay, he made these big promises. That's what like white liberals do. They know how to lie. They know how to lie. They know how to mask the big white lie, and they'll sit there and they'll sell you the American dream that doesn't exist to anybody but themselves. And what they do is they occupy space that removes us from being able to be there. So they sit on boards and commissions and they make decisions about our communities, which are completely biased to their own greed. I mean, quite frankly, if you follow the grant money, you're going to find all your answers. Because you know what they do? They sit there and they get the funding and they hire their friends and they make sure their friends are comfortable. And in the meantime, we have people dying in solitary confinement and being detained by immigration enforcement or being brutalized by police or being told that you're shit and you'll always remain that way and being shown videos of us as criminals. If any of us were down at that terrorist act on the 6th, we'll either be dead or if we did survive, what they would have done is find the worst possible picture from whenever, I don't even know when, show that, make us seem as if they were the worst thing on the planet. Because let me tell you how they're able to do that. The white supremacy and the media go hand in hand. This is how we learn and we share information, and this is why we have to be careful with our media. Social media was not allowed to get as expanded as it did by mistake. I have seen Mark Zuckerberg, yes, Mark, I'm talking to you, flag my post and then let these morons from Hamden Action Now post whatever they want to. So my little post as a brown person is out of place. But somebody from Hamden Action Now, not Hamden Action, Hamden Crime Watchers, I said that wrong.
I'm about to say, we don't post nothing bad.
No, she posted things. I was in my moment.
Like,
She's
dang,
gonna get me after this.
shots
She's
fired.
gonna get me. I meant Hamden Crime Watchers. I was in thought.
If I put that up
They
there,
did
they'd
that
bitch
too.
shut me
They
down.
posted things like the gun barrels and everything, and they were threatening the Hamden Action Now. I mean, come on. I got thrown off the page because I asked them if it was a digital meeting point for the KKK. It was an honest question because of the fact that the narrative on that page, Hamden Crime Watchers. Let me say it again: that Hamden Action Now, Hamden Crime Watchers. Beat me after Rhonda, please. You know, it was terrible. You have white people boasting about they will shoot you, and all because what? They don't want to lock their cars. Like, we really have to take a good, strong look at Connecticut because those white liberals played us. They played us. They open up these nonprofits and they made us feel like they care. Go ask them how much money that they received from the COVID care really went to our communities, and watch the answer you're gonna get. Follow the money.
Continue to wait. I don't know how much longer we're supposed to wait for it to be equitable. You know, I mean, you know, like Barbara Fair just said, you know, we keep running to the polls and putting them in office, talking about it's so funny and it's so cute to talk about, you know, the Republicans and, oh, you know, Donald Trump is so funny. And, you know, black people walk around talking about this is so funny. While, you know, you walking around in a community where they could quickly put a gun to your head and blow you away and go back home and have dinner with their family like nothing ever happened. All right. Yeah. And so like, and no one seems to want to connect the dots. You know, everybody wants to be like, well, you know, and it's because we criminalize ourselves. Like you said, if you can stop and really begin to stop criminalizing yourself, you know, as a people and saying, well, what did he do? He must have did something to deserve it. I mean, I had one person tell me, well, you know, George Floyd did have a counterfeit $20 bill.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I said, I'm going to pause this and I'm going to come back to you in about 5 minutes and let's see what you got to say again. Oh, no, you're right. You're right. I said, see, I mean, it's like, you know, you created this condition for yourself. And that has been very effective post-slavery. Mm-hmm. Criminalization and victimization. You somehow, Breonna Taylor was sleeping in her bed and then they want to run all of this film. They're going to run all of this film on her ex-boyfriend that she's not even with anymore. He wasn't at the house.
That's right.
She got no communication with this guy at all. I'm going to say, well, the drug dealer that wasn't there, he was what they were looking for. I'm like, okay, A, y'all don't know he was a drug dealer. B, she doesn't even see this guy anymore. The new boyfriend, they both got out of work and he was there. She's 26 years old. She could be in the house with whoever she wants. She's a grown woman. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But the criminalization of every incident is the continuation of the criminalization of people. And then, like we always say, it's always handed down. Edgar and I ran a nonprofit housing corporation in the 90s. We were criminalized every day. I would go to board meetings with the Rotary Club in Bridgeport, who board members would say to me, I'm really going to comb through these financial statements because I know there's got to be a slush fund here somewhere that you guys have been very creative to hide the money, because I don't know how Edgar's driving around in such a nice car and you're driving around in such a nice car. Y'all must have a slush fund somewhere up in here. Criminalization.
Yep.
All the time.
When will we stop allowing to happen? That's the public health crisis.
When we sit down and tell the border Ed where to stick it, there's no reason why.
I want to stay on that topic, Rhonda, because remember, in the Rotary Club, there's this thing called the 4-way test, and the 4-way test it's supposed to rate the value of an action that another Rotary member does to another member to make sure that it's equitable. And we were Rotarians, but that 4-way test seemed like it didn't apply to us because
it didn't.
No one ever geared our opinion, even though we made several individuals, the organization we were running and the buildings that we managed, even though we made individuals in that club Rotarian of the Year on several occasions internationally, because of how we managed those properties and the notoriety that came out of those properties. But we still weren't viewed as the 4-way test.
We were criminalized doing our job. See, this is what I'm saying. If you talk about racism is like going into a deep fog. Like you ever going outside in the middle of the fog and you can't see your hand in front of your face because it covers everything. Every area of your life is covered by white supremacy. There is no tap out. There is no tap out. You cannot tap out at home. You cannot tap out at work. When you go to the doctor, people are going to go get COVID treatment right now all over the state of Connecticut. And this hospital says, oh, Rhonda, we're not going to give you the remdesivir because we don't think that you're going to live longer than the next 5 years.
That's right.
This one says, okay, give it to her. She might live for the next year. Give it to her. So it's everywhere. Every interaction that you have is always covered in that mist of white supremacy. And there is no turning it off. There's no terminology. There's no kind of
everywhere.
Action. You cannot train it away. You have to acknowledge it, and you have to confront it, and you have to reject it.
Call it what it is. You gotta call it what it is.
Reject it, white people. You have to say what happened on January 6th was a rebellion against white supremacists who were angry about the black vote and the brown vote.
That's right.
And that's the only way you can explain it. You can't tell me, oh, it was a protest that went bad. No, I ain't never went to a protest with a sledgehammer and zip ties and pipe bombs.
Well, that's what I was just saying about the Hamden Crime Watchers page. And let me emphasize, I was talking about the Hamden Crime Watchers. I got all up in my thought there. But that's what had me appalled, because here's a Facebook page. This is happening right here in Connecticut, of people sitting here, bad-mouthing, threatening. The stuff they were saying on this page is horrendous. The New Haven Board of Ed, we're watching Darnell getting lynched publicly, repeatedly, right? And then you have a coon like Maritza Bond who gets a tap on the hand because she's doing everything that Justin Ehrlicher tells her to do and to say. And we need to call it what it is. And it will be a hurtful thing because you might be calling out people that you consider to be friends. But guess what? If they're offended by you calling it what it is, let me tell you something. White people have no problem telling us who we are and how we're supposed to be that. We should have no problem.
Friends for us.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
We should have no problem calling it like it is to them too. Enough is enough now. We need to
Exactly.
stand up
I
for
mean,
each other, you know, and stand together and combat this thing. Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, we could sit here, like, you know, I sit through these meetings and all I say at the end of these community meetings, everybody, you know, Rhonda, come and join this meeting. We want you to talk. And I'm like, okay, that's nice. But at the end of the meeting, I would like to know where the money is and how are you going to get it to our community? And don't tell me nothing about these big multi-million-dollar, internationally known nonprofits. I don't want to hear nothing about them, because any nonprofit that makes the executive director makes $2 or $3 million a year, you're canceled. I don't want to hear nothing about it. You know, I mean, let's just talk about even the executive director of Yale Hospital, which is is a nonprofit. Just so y'all know, she brings home a $4 million paycheck. Yep.
But didn't we talk about this too? The fact that there's
getting a
17 billionaires in this state. Connecticut is one of the richest states in the country. Why didn't these people get together and say, if they're so blue and so progressive, you know, let's put some funds together and put it back in the community? I mean, for Pete's sake, look at what Bernie Sanders just did with something that turned into a joke. Everybody was laughing about his little mittens. What did he do? Why aren't these things happening here? You know why? Because it's all about the big white lie in Connecticut, from the job to the schools to the doctor's office to the banks. I mean, we're getting turned away and spit on in every direction. And we need to see it and get up and stand up and say enough is enough. Enough is enough. We have overqualified people being underpaid and not even able to qualify for certain jobs and roles. People are being bullied on the job, and it's all being allowed. Why? Because when you do things the white way, you get that, you know, that level of protection. And this is why declaring racism a public health crisis will hurt and offend your white liberals, because now all of them who said Black Lives Matter and showed up to the protests and all those things and said the white things and they did the white way, now they got to go to work now and make it right. And they can't handle that. Now they got to go to the DOC and make it right. They can't handle that. They don't want to do it. It's the balance of power. They don't want to give it to us.
I want to just tell everybody tonight that racism is a health crisis, because it's been making me sick. It's been making me sick for 50 years. There, I said it.
Yes.
I look at it this way. I want the white allies, they have to settle their differences amongst themselves. Yes. Coming out and marching with Black Lives Matter and saying one thing is one thing. They have to have that argument and that discussion amongst themselves. And they have to come to the agreements that, look, what's going on here is wrong. And the only way that things is going to change is from, we're going to have to make a change. We're going to have to say, you know what? I think we need to make an African-American, a Black and brown individual be our leader in order to get the right information across. Until that happens, come in and joining Black Lives Matter, coming and joining the West Indian Association of Greater Bridgeport, coming in there. That makes no. Whatever organization that you're involved with, that's where you need to put that emphasis if you feel that change needs to happen. And lastly, I have one thing that I hear everyone is talking about, ways to make changes and everything, but one of the most effective ways that change occurred was through boycotting.
Yes.
Hitting them in their pockets.
Yes.
Mr. Bezos made $50 billion in the first 4 months of COVID. 50 billion. Okay. So now boycotting has proven to be the only, quote unquote, the only effective way to foster some changes. But who amongst us is willing to sacrifice to say that I'm going to do A, B, and C? Let me one last thing. When Kaepernick, when he was let go, I heard a lot of black male. Oh man, that's wrong. I'm not gonna get. I'm gonna boycott this. I'm gonna boycott that. You know what happened in August and September? They signed up for the sports package anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
they wore the team logos. They wore
Mm-hmm.
everything. It was this before the season started. It was an uproar. Where's my picket? Let me get my picket sign down with the NFL. As soon as season started,
Mm-hmm.
business as usual. And that's what happens in our communities. Other communities, they shut it down. I want everyone to Google Arsenio Hall and find out exactly. Arsenio Hall had the #1 talk show in America.
Yes.
Okay? And he had one individual on his show. Google it. You guys will find out who it is. And after that, instantaneously, he lost his show because a certain community banded together and said, look, we didn't like you having that person. We're pulling our celebrities. We're pulling our sponsorship. We're pulling everything. And this guy went from the #1 show to being canceled within a couple of weeks or months. That's power. Right. Until we organize and we can organize in that manner. They didn't march. They didn't hold rallies. They didn't do anything. They hit him financially.
In the pocket.
We continue to pay for our oppression. I've been saying that for years. Like I said, they take the money out of my paycheck faithfully every 2 weeks. State of Connecticut, yep, that's right. You, Governor Lamont, you take my money every 2 weeks faithfully. And then you break off a little something and send it down to the feds. Everybody takes it. And then I'm like, so why do we have to go? I got to pay you and kiss your behind too? Like,
right.
Like, why do I have to?
You gotta be grateful. You gotta be a grateful person. You know, you gotta be grateful. You gotta be lucky. You gotta feel lucky that you have a job. You know, and here's the thing: since the beginning of COVID, right? Let's face the facts. Since the beginning of COVID, it's our people who are having internet connectivity issues and we're getting punished. It's our people who are having daycare costs and getting punished. It's our people who are getting pulled over. Like, we keep getting criminalized in so many different ways. This racism.
But it's not because of COVID. It's not because of COVID. It's been happening.
It was always here.
It's always happened.
Since the beginning.
It always happened. Yes. COVID just kind of highlighted it.
The criminalization is the default. That's like the default. But if you want to, you got to reset your computer and you got to hit the power button and do a cold boot. You know, a cold boot. Yeah, warm boot is when you do the Control Alt Delete. A cold boot is when you hit the power. That's what that is. I will bring your ass down I'll cut you down to size. We're gonna criminalize what you just did. We're gonna take everything you got away from you. All right? Because just as much as we gave it to you, we'll take it back.
I'm gonna take it from my friend Barbara Fair. Paul concedes nothing without demand. Now is the time to take it to the streets for real. We have to do it. We cannot sit here. We've been here before, but we don't realize it. And that's what they want us to think, that they want us to fall into the big white lie. They're forcing everything to be normal. Here's the truth. It has been almost a year since Justin Ehrlicher has had any public interaction. It's been almost a year since our friend Governor Lamont has seen our faces, since we've shown up to hit their meetings, since we've crowded the Board of Ed meetings. And why that's important is because without seeing us and hearing our voices, they feel that, we think everything's okay. And this is why people need to show up at these virtual meetings, and they need to say, no, it's wrong for you to publicly lynch Darnell Golson. No, it is atrocious that we still have to, deal with things like solitary confinement. It is terrible that moral turpitude is the way that they get us to lose our lives and our livelihoods. It is hard that we have the first student buses leaving the bus station without it being sanitized. Why? These people are not making a lot of money, and now they have to pay for their own PPE and all the associated costs. That's insane. Meanwhile,
Those tough
you have
guys.
the
We got
Crime
tough guys.
Watchers page that's getting praised. They're about to win an Academy Award or some shit because they're talking about, oh, the crime is up. But why don't you realize what's really happening in Hamden? These people are mad just because they don't want to lock their cars. Like, you see, but who gets criminalized? Who gets put in jail? Who is treated like an animal? We can't ask
But
no more.
hold
We
up,
gotta demand them to show
hold
up
up,
on the streets.
hold up. That's correct. That's 100% correct. But we have to take a little inventory for ourselves also. So them not locking their cars, one thing, but we've got to educate our community too to say that, look, they're almost setting you up. So they're
They're
leaving their
setting you
cars
up,
open
bro.
so you can
Almost.
go
They
and
are
try to
setting you
open
up.
it so they can blast you away. So
They
you
can
have
you
to
roll up and they
But
can
refrain
wait a
blow
from
you
minute.
away.
Hold up. How do you know it was one of us? This is why that page astounds me. How did they know that it was a black or brown person? I mean, I think that Hamden doesn't need any police. They should just hire Al Lotto and his friends from the Hamden Crime Watchers page because clearly they know how to handle crime. How do we know it's black and brown people doing it? But you know why we're so
I'm not
quick?
saying that.
No, but wait a minute. We're so quick to assume it because we've been told and we've been criminalized for so
I'll
long.
tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because every time up until I sent an email, every time a notification came out from the Hamden Police Department, it would always read, and I quote, young black male,
That's
young
right.
light-skinned black male. So, okay,
Mhm.
let's connect the dots. So we have all of these break-ins and people are checking people's doors and the Ring videos and all that. And then on the other side, when you see any communication that comes out from the Hamden Police Department, it's described as young black male, young light-skinned
Mhm.
black male. They even differentiating between dark-skinned and
You know what I'm
light-skinned
saying?
black male. Come on. Come on. So what are you supposed to think is breaking into your cars? It's these people
Mhm.
that are coming out on the communications in an official capacity. I was like, so then people were saying to me, well, Rhonda, what are they supposed to say if it was a black male? I said, okay, so I don't see them saying young Jewish male. Okay.
No.
I don't see them saying
No.
young Latino male.
Colorism. All this
Go
time.
back and read
Colorism.
them. They're not saying that.
Mhm.
Stop it.
No. And they won't.
And
They
then you
won't.
turn on the TV, watch the Channel 8 news. Watch it.
Mhm.
They criminalize these people, these news media outlets are the kings and queens of
Oh yeah, the media is the way.
continuing the criminalization image all throughout. They have the perp walk, they got the mugshot, they got, I mean, it's just, it's the best. I mean, it like they have made a whole campaign out of criminalizing black people. So then when you have these pages set up, they go, you know, I'm gonna get a gun, you know, wrong house, asshole, I'm gonna blow you away, I'm gonna do this. I'm like, okay.
But yet when we
All
post
right.
something, and that's why I got the names there, because when we post something on our pages, Hamden Crime Watchers literally had posts where they were saying, I guess I'm gonna have to shoot you, wrong place, wrong time. But then if I post something about Trump, it gets flagged. In fact, I'm still in Facebook jail. I can't even go live, right? And you're telling me it's not all connected? That's insane. It is connected, and we need to call it what it is and cut it out. We need to stop it. Like, stop owning the blame all the time. Am I saying we're perfect? Nobody is.
No.
But look at what happened at, the Capitol on the 6th. These people are being called everything else but what they are. They are terrorists. They should all be thrown into at least Rikers general population for a little bit, get them nice and warm. Okay? They're so privileged, right? They're so privileged. You had one of them asking for organic meat. Are you kidding me? Do you know how much it costs to call somebody when you're incarcerated? And this moron has the nerve to talk about organic meat? What about the men and women who've been incarcerated and haven't been able to see their families? Because you know what they do to you? They shift you from one center to another. So it makes it hard harder, especially in the case of immigrants.
Out of
We get
state.
sent
They ship
further
you out
and
of
further
state.
away.
Yeah.
They ship you
Well,
out of
here's the good
state.
news. Here's the good news, folks. All of those people went home.
Yeah.
Now
Yes.
they lay in wait until their
And their
next attack.
workplaces. And some of them were in law enforcement.
So who
So now we have a
are
very
these
interesting
people?
thing.
Who are
A lot
Yes.
of
they?
veterans
Who are
too.
they? And a lot of
Some of them
military.
were veterans.
Military.
Yes.
Yes. So where
I
are
just
these
want to know who
people?
flew the flag because there was a motorcade that left from Connecticut to go to that terrorist act, and we need to find out who they are, and we need to blast them up. Okay, you know, and I think
Oh,
if we see who they are, we'll be like, oh really? Oh really? You know,
Okay, we see
I'm
them. What's going to
understanding
happen?
that one of them was the son of a judge.
When we see them, what's going to happen?
When we see them, we'll get. You want me to tell that right here? Really?
No, I'm just saying. No. You ain't got to give that. I'm just saying that. Okay, they'll be prosecuted for waving the flag.
They won't be prosecuted. That's the
they were-
point, Edgar.
they're on federal property. They were trespassing.
Mhm.
At least get something. But
I
my
want to see
point,
some RICO charges here.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm playing devil's
Right?
advocate, and I'm throwing out because the spin
No,
that
don't do
the
that. Don't
spin
do that.
they
No,
have
no,
been
no, no, no,
putting.
no, 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 no. Don't do that. That's the problem. Stop
Well, you have to.
rationalizing their shit. No,
No,
you don't.
but-
I don't
but
have
that's-
to do that. I don't
but
have
that's
to do
what's gonna
that.
happen.
You lost your mind.
No,
Hell
it's
no.
not.
Always
Let me
do
tell you
it.
what's gonna happen.
They-
You asked a question. Let me answer you. Here's what's gonna
Okay.
happen. We find out who flew
They
the flag.
always do it.
They're gonna say who it is, and a whole bunch of white leadership are gonna say, just like Justin Alicker did for Maritza Bond, oh, they didn't know it was a flag. They thought it was a piece of paper, and they just kept flying it from side to side. That's what they're gonna do. And
I
what we
didn't
need
know
to
it was
do-
going to turn into a terrorist attack. I mean,
Exactly.
the guy ran
I
by me
thought
with
we were
his
at a
zip
party.
ties and the sledgehammer
Yeah.
and the pipe bombs.
Yeah.
I didn't.
No accidental
Yeah.
terrorist attacks.
I
They
didn't-
happen all the
I-
time, man.
I just was doing what Donald Trump said.
We were more.
Donald
even
Trump
that,
said
they're
to
gonna
go
say
kill
things
Nancy
like-
Pelosi.
They're gonna say things like, "Oh, that guy who was setting up that bomb right there, I thought it was fireworks." We need to really wake
What?
up here in Connecticut. Exactly. We need to wake up and we need to realize what's going on. Stop making excuses for their bullshit because when we get pulled over, it's license and registration and they'll find a way to put us in jail. Okay? That's what they do. We need to stop incarcerating our own selves. We need to
See
stop
what
it.
happened?
I don't give a rat's
I don't know
ass.
what other power.
When we said like we were gonna pull the gun on the cop and we said to shoot the cop with his own gun, what they really meant
Right.
by accident was we thought the gun was like one of those guns with a flag in it that said bang. We didn't
No,
think it was
no.
a real gun, and that's where the
And-
misunderstanding came.
Here's what made it really terribly disturbing is that these people were mad at the cops for not opening the doors and letting them come on in and kill the people. They were like,
Why not?
you know what? You're going to stop us and we're going to kill you too. You know, I was like, well, ain't that about a bad language? I mean, look at that. You know, I mean, so all I could tell you is I would like to know when. Okay, no, forget about that because we already asked that question. We already know this is now the digital civil rights movement. And we already know that we're already paying for our oppression coming out of all of our pay some type of way. You know, and now you got the Republicans going, oh, no, we can't give them no more COVID relief. Lord help me. You know what I'm
Working people
saying?
never
I
got
mean,
COVID relief.
Joe
Working people
Biden
never
said,
got
listen,
COVID relief.
we're gonna either get this with bipartisan or we're gonna run it through ourselves. So y'all can figure out how you want to do this. We can run it
Gave the
through because we
rich
got the votes.
over- they gave the rich over like somewhere in the order of about, you know, they were printing trillions of dollars each day for a while, and there was a $8 trillion stimulus. I don't know what the final numbers are because I can't count that high or fast. They can give us 2 or 3 trillion.
Where they get that $1 trillion from is what I want to know. Oh,
No, they
take it
didn't
from
give
my
us
paycheck
any.
every 2
Please
weeks.
correct yourself. We didn't get it. They told us it was there, and we're supposed to imagine it. It's like Puff the Magic Dragon. It was there. in spirit. It was spiritually
It's
there.
like
It was
monopoly
in our
money. It's like
working
monopoly
people
money.
didn't get
It's
any
like,
relief. When did working
Hey,
people
not
you
get
know,
any relief?
and let me tell you something. Like, you know, I think of like the federal government now because it's just such a gigantic mess. Like playing Monopoly with my daughter when she was 9. She would cheat. Oh my God. This little kid would cheat. She would hide her money and she'd be like, no, 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 this is what the price is for that property right there. I'm like, well, now I'm out of money. Well, that's too bad. I said, she's a little mini capitalist. Look at her. Look at you go. Go on, little girl. You know, because she's already knows how people scheme. She sees it all the time. It's like this little mist that's all over us. It happens at birth. When you're a black person, a little mist just descends right over your body. And so she already knows. She's like, so she hustles me playing Monopoly. I don't even play with her no more. She just cheats too bad.
Hey,
She don't want to pay her
trying to
fair
make
price.
ends meet, man. She's trying to make
But I'm
ends
just
meet.
saying, like
When we were
everybody
storming the
think that we're
Capitol and we
supposed
were
to
gonna
pretend like we didn't
hang
see what we
people,
saw. We
we
saw
didn't.
what we
We meant
saw,
hang
bro.
like efficacies of. We didn't really mean hang, even though we went there to where they were hanging, where they were, and we built the gallows to hang them. We really were just playing, like, you know,
That we didn't
hangmen or
mean that.
something. Yeah, that.
And Donald Trump didn't mean for them people to go down there. When he said we're gonna have to take it by force, he didn't really mean that. Donald was just kidding.
Oh,
You know, he's had a really, really interesting personality and sense of humor. Donald was not serious. I don't know why y'all keep
and a
trying to
good
say Donald
toupee.
set them
I gotta
people
tell you
down there.
something. Could we talk about his toupee for a minute? Because let me tell you, that piece of hair right there could last through anything. He stood there in a press conference and everything else was blowing, except right here. You know what I mean? I want to shout out
That's
his
some special
stylist.
hair
That was a good
cream.
job. You know,
They glued that
yeah.
sucker down, honey. That sucker was
I'm trying to
glued
tell
down.
you, that's
Gorilla
some good
glue.
hair,
That
man.
is
That's
his
some
hair
good hair.
cream.
That's better
I'm
than weed
telling you.
glue. That's better than any kind of. You know what? Maybe he does have a black hairstylist who uses like weave glue and like, you know, that glue that you use when you got to get a lace front. The lace front glue. That's the kind of.
You know what? You're onto something. Let me tell you something. Donald was always a businessman. Watch him start selling wigs. You watch. He gonna start selling hair.
Listen, Donald, he gonna have to do something because he's losing a good chunk of his little estate. Is like, you know,
Oh,
they
will he
might
though?
have to start getting a little
But will
worried.
he though? Let me tell you something.
No, he's
One
not
of us
lose it
gets
all. He's not be
incarcerated.
broke.
If one of us get incarcerated, we're gonna lose a lot of what we have. The thing is, when you're wealthy to that degree, it's like nothing. It's like just write a check. He filed for bankruptcy several times and somehow was still able to get funding. We need to really think about that. Ned Lamont sitting here talking about, I have a brilliant idea with his $400 million self. You know, here's a brilliant idea. We're going to tax weed and gaming. Who is paying for that? It's us again. And this is why, yes, it's a virtual civil rights movement, but we can never and should never underestimate nor underscore the power of taking it to the streets. We need to take it to the streets. We need to show these people, and we could do it in a socially responsible way. We have and we will continue to. You know, we need to recognize and acknowledge our power and act in that way, especially right here and especially right now. Or we could buy weed from Donald.
I'm gonna take it to the streets the minute I get my vaccine. Man, you're gonna be like, Wanda, when I get my vaccine,
most of us aren't gonna get it. Most of us in Newhallville aren't gonna get it because we have state insurance, and there's been no word about where the Medicaid recipients fall in terms of vaccinations, and that's something that needs to be spoke on. You know what I mean?
Well, Joe Biden said it's supposed to be free.
We barely even have grocery stores out here.
Everyone.
I want my free vaccine. I want to roll over to CVS and get my free vaccine. Because after that, I'm going to go out and hang out. I'm going to Dewan's house and hang out. Then I'm going to Edgar house and hang out. Then I'm going to CJ house.
No, we're going to go to Edgar's house first. I saw Edgar drinking something there.
You gotta wait for the summer. Wait for the summer.
We go into the protest after my house.
That's right. That's right.
We're like, dang, Ron ain't never
there's
home.
a drink right there. See? We're going to go sit for Edgar in his $1 million office.
Look, and I want the Pfizer vaccine because that's the one that's good against all of it. I'm like, listen, give me the Pfizer vaccine. I want the 2 shots. I'm gonna count my
I don't
21
know.
days.
Johnson just released one that's pretty effective too. So I don't know.
Listen,
It's gonna be vaccine wars.
I'm getting out of this house by any means necessary. As Malcolm say, as brother Malcolm say, by any means necessary, I'm getting out
by
this
any
house.
means
Yeah,
necessary,
but
man.
it's like 10 degrees outside right now.
Right.
Just saying.
Listen, I went to Walmart today. I had my head, my double mask, my N95, my hospital mask over it, my screen, my little protector, my hood. I feel like somebody get me a
that's
vaccine.
because you don't have the Donald Trump here. Have you noticed that he's been in single-digit cool and he never wore a hat? That's some good hair, man. That thing holds heat and everything.
It could be like a 90-mile-an-hour whiz, and that's what I'm saying. They're using the lace front glue because that stuff doesn't burn.
The guys are looking at
That's
us.
not that weed glue. That's that lace front glue. They want to make sure they're like, Mr. President, Mr. President, we need to make sure your toupee is tight because we got a 40-mile-an-hour east to west wind. We don't want to issue.
Well, you know what? I appreciate his stylist because at least his hair didn't look like one of the Kardashian sisters. Because it could have been worse. Let's just be fair.
It could have been way worse. All right. So who wants the final thoughts tonight? Because I'm having too much fun.
Dewan, you do it, Dewan. You've been real quiet.
Dewan, you get the last word. You get the last word. Young blood, go ahead.
May we finally get beyond this virus by them getting hopefully Biden successfully does get that virus to all of us. Not virus, excuse me, the vaccine to all of us. We've been under this for a year. This is ridiculous. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's all about the rationing, right? So they ration us being safe, and they're going to continue doing it. And all of this is the racism that always existed, and that's what we need to really realize and own it and call it what it is. Don't be afraid to do that. It is what it is. That feeling you have, that anger you feel when you see them getting away with stuff, it's real. Own it. It's real. Let's work towards that. Let's work towards our liberation.
I mean, we got to get beyond being scared to say it. I mean, like if you've been disenfranchised, just go and say it. I don't like. What are you going to do to me that you haven't already done?
Right. And continue
I ain't got nothing left to lose. I ain't got nothing left to lose. You done took it all anyway, so I'm good now. So this is where y'all wanted me to be. Here I am.
That's right.
Great.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Right. That's right.
You guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see y'all back here next Saturday. Well, maybe we might have somebody who's brave enough to come and talk with us. Most likely, no. Nobody wants to have this discussion.
Can I just make one quick announcement before we go, Rhonda? Can I just say one quick thing for my friend here, Barbara Fair and Stop Solitary Confinement? They're having a press conference on Monday at 9 a.m. It's a virtual press conference. CTN will broadcast. The topic is End Solitary Confinement in Connecticut and Shut Down Supermax. If you reach out to Miss Barbara Fair or go on the Stop Solitary Confinement page, you'll find out more. I really hope people get involved. Now is the time. As you said, this is a civil rights movement. We can't just quote the greats. We have to be great as well.
That's right. We have to be great.
Because we are. We're amazing.
Yep.
We are.
About to get worse, but we'll just wait until that comes. As soon as I get my vaccine, I'm gonna be out in the streets. It's gonna be terrible again. All right.
Marching with the vaccine.
Well, you guys, thank you so much. Right. And I'll see y'all next Saturday.
All right, everyone.
We'll have some more.
All right, have a good night.
Take care, everyone. Have a good night. All right.
Take care. Be safe. You matter.
All right. I hope y'all enjoyed tonight's talk. It was totally rad. And we'll see y'all next Saturday, 8 o'clock. It'll be more fun and more chatting about all these wonderful topics that I know how happy everybody loves to hear about. Have a good weekend.